to the piece, and this is the beginning. It's just one simple sound. Sound starts off with complete darkness. The system is multi-channels, multiple speakers, and in each corner there are lights as well as three-way systems on each side. Not three-way speaker by itself, but it's multiple speakers that make up the system. And if you can tell, on the left side of the speaker is only the sound with a delay in it. But if we go to the speaker on the other side of the wall, it's only the sound with a reverb on it. So depending on where you stand in the room is where you get the effect. And from the center, you can hear the dry signal itself. Yeah, so there's sounds that are not only coming from the speakers, but they're coming from the ceiling and the area that is the focus area, which is where you get everything at one time, you know. That's with the cross, yeah. So the whole composition is electronic. It's a multi-channel composition. One would, in the music world, you call them stems. This is called the dub sequence. The next time it goes around, they'll have the techno sequence, which is considered more of a techno bass line. And that's the one that repeats the most. Every time it repeats, the positioning changes. There are some things that change to make it unique, and it's the experience that you're gonna get each time. Enjoy. So, people get the rave at lunchtime.
I love it. Especially we're in the center on the cross. It's a full body experience.
Yes.
I think that's profound. I love what he did with the lighting as well. That goes hand in hand.
Yeah, because the original piece was conceived at Dia Beacon with using it in this space because the space is smaller, but the positioning of sounds is tuned for this space, because with Beacon, we're dealing with, 8-second reverb, and all concrete. And this space, the reverb is a lot less, and the ceilings are wood, so it's not going to reverberate in the same way as what was happening at Beacon. So there's certain things that had to hit at certain volumes for it to even cut through to hit you at that sweet spot.
That was meant to be 2020, right?
2020 is when it debuted, and then it had to shut down for the pandemic, and then it opened back up again, I think in August of 2020, and it stayed on for a year, which was, for me, that's great, yeah, because it was only supposed to be for 3 months, and it turned out to, take over for a year, more than a year and a quarter. So that's great. But
is it meant to tour the different locations, or this was just Dia Beacon and then the MOCA reached out, hey, let's do it?
Yes, exactly. So there was discussion about whether it would tour or could tour, but my first goal was to make it something that worked at Beacon and that felt right there, So when putting the piece together, and this is my, my maiden my maiden voyage, my maiden piece. I come from making records that can be very complex or very simple. I've done remixes for he, she, anybody.
Yeah.
I've done all this stuff.
Tiffany Haddish, no.
Yeah, well, if she comes to Detroit, because when she came, and I'm like, okay, here's Moody Man, meet Moody Man, Here, Moody Man is, because I know Kenny and know what exactly to do with her, and she may end up on a Moody Man record because of that. So I knew exactly, like, hey, here's Felix the House Cat, So
I saw Felix there.
Yeah, Felix was there. Kenny Larkin was there too.
I had Kenny play at our Are We On Air kiosk. We did one during Oscars.
Okay.
And Moody was playing.
Yeah.
And so I gotta come see him play again 2 weeks later. where did this idea come from, or was it Dia reached out to you and you let's put something together? Or I think it's the 40 years of techno now-ish.
Yeah.
And I love how the genre or the culture is now elevated to a point it's in museums and in galleries.
They reached out. So Kelly Kivlin reached out to me initially because they wanted to do something on site at Dia that was like a festival. And, you know, with my experience with doing a DMF and with movement, they came to me, and that was great. But I wasn't really so interested in doing a festival. So it morphed into me doing a piece, which to me says a lot more for what I've done. You know, I like to make music that you might not get today, but tomorrow it'll be like, okay, I got it. You know, it was like that for me, like with Around the World in a Day, Prince's album. The first time I heard it, it was like, what the hell is this crap? You know, and then then after listening a few more times, it's like I'm singing Raspberry Beret and, you know, all that stuff. So. During this segment, the louvers on the roof come open to introduce this natural light.
Panorama bar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, and that's the whole thing about the concept of the piece was when we were discussing what I would do. You know, of course, I have friends that do graphics, and I have friends that do all this other kind of stuff, and you know, and the concept was, you know, should I bring in somebody to collaborate with? And I kind of felt around, do I want to do it as like a photography piece? Do I want to do, and it just didn't make any sense. It made sense for me to do this
with the bones of the space.
Yeah, to utilize the space without thinking about it in a typical sense of what people think is art. You know, because coming from Detroit, art to a lot of people is, you know, you got a watercolor by numbers, you know. It's like, oh, it looks like something, so it's art. That's the Detroit way of thinking, and that's a very blue-collar way of thinking, a Uniontown way of thinking, and that happens all over the United States, so not just Detroit. So I had to kind of kick that Detroit angle out to the curb and bring in, you know, something that to me is important with art, which is to put your whole self into it. And when you put yourself into it, that's the truth. So the truth of the matter is that this is, you know, encapsulating the 30 odd years I've been out on the road DJing, you know, so playing warehouse parties, playing clubs, Panorama Bar, you know, because that was when I first got that vibe. I think I was playing Nice as Jaguar, and you know, when it breaks down, you turn the lights down, and then when it comes back in, the shades open up, and it was like, it was amazing to me. And of course, I had to use that as a reference, you know, in the same way of the sounds that I'm using as a reference, in the same way, because how I use the sounds refer to in the first part, in the party part, refer to how what people would expect in the sense of going to see a DJ play. So, you know, you have the techno sound, you have a rhythm that's pretty consistent, that has a bit of shuffle to it. It's some 303 that's coming in now, you know, then later there's what I call the techno strings, which, you know, there's this techno string part that pops up, which is reference to Detroit techno string thing. And then at the end, a snare roll. And I don't play snare rolls, but it's become such a norm lexicon to build up the energy. And it's something that people have gotten so used to and to expect that, you know, I threw it in there to, you know, to serve as a tool, but also I kind of put it in there as a little tongue-in-cheek thing, you know, like, yeah, you know, I
know how this works,
rolls, but here's a drum
kind of
roll.
to show the spectrum of
Yes.
what techno is and
Yes.
these elements. I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Do you want people to come and dance in there, or do you want them to actually sit in and just feel it?
Maybe my next piece I'll put chairs in.
Here's some cushion.
Yeah, here, you know, put a sitar out and go for it or whatever. But yeah, it's LA, so we'll get all like mystical and vibey, and only show it in LA and Ibiza, and that'll be, you know, I really hope that, yeah, we can find places like this in Dia. My objective is not to do this in places where clubs are the norm. So when the piece was first coming into fruition, I had the opportunity to do it at Chelsea, Dia Chelsea. And that made zero sense to me because there's already clubs in Manhattan, you know, so you can go to Meatpacking, you can go to Brooklyn, you can go, you know, my whole history of clubbing in New York has been in Manhattan. And so it's great that, I mean, it's great, you know, it's great because I guess at the door they're giving everybody earplugs. So that's great because we don't have to worry about turning the volume down. Even though I think we could use it and lower it and people would get the idea, but they would still use earplugs. So why not keep it at the level that it's intended? Yes. But
what a wholesome moment, actually.
I mean, that's great. It's like a school trip or something.
Yeah.
You know,
Teach them young.
Yeah, so that's great. So the next place, like here in LA, in Tokyo, Little Tokyo, where are the clubs around here?
Yeah.
Barely any bars, probably.
Yeah.
So, and then the whole movement of clubbing here or having parties is something that is, you know, warehouse parties that aren't every week, or raves, or festivals, or, you know, probably people are doing house parties in the hills or something, you know.
That's the nightlife culture here, right?
Yeah.
It's like between those two. It's not so. I mean, the city's infrastructure plays a big role in that.
Right. This is the techno strings part.
Let's
Okay.
have a little.
Builds up. So you don't have any drums, you just have the bass, the strings, the voice that stays repetitive. And then it launches into, you know, the white noise to give you that impact. Now the lights are strobing, and again, it gives you that other feeling of you know, what you would get at a warehouse party or you would get at a club is strobe lights. And I love strobe lights. Actually, for me, the best party is if you have one strobe and it's dark and then you hit the strobe.
All you need.
That's all you need. And then the music's just pounding, you know? And that's the thing that is my world, you know, from when I started doing this.
Well, I guess we can actually jump into that, where it all started, with your earliest significant musical memory that shaped you as an artist.
I always tell the story about the first time I played a record. It was 39 years ago, because I just saw the Egyptian Lover posted that Egypt came out 39 years ago. I used to carry records everywhere. I went down for a family reunion in Georgia, And the guys who were DJing, and I was real shy. My cousin's husband asked, "Yeah, he's got some records. Why don't you let him play?" So they're like, oh, "Okay, come on, little man, come on, play." And I put Egypt on, and the whole room blew up. Egyptian lover. Everybody went crazy. Egyptian lover, Egyptian lover, baby. Egyptian lover, Egyptian lover, baby. I'm surprised by it, and these DJs are surprised by it. And what they didn't understand or they didn't know was that that was the hottest record in Detroit at the time. And most of us were from Detroit in Georgia. So they never heard the record before in Georgia. These DJs never heard it. And they weren't really into craft work or any of that kind of stuff. They were playing, more like R&B disco stuff and, party music, but not electronic party music. So they didn't know. So that was the first time that I got a taste of, playing to an audience. And I asked, "Can I put on another track?" And they're like, "Yeah, go on ahead." The second track flopped. So now the windows opened again. All right. Now the skylight opened again, and you get the natural light.
I mean, it's for me also at Panorama Bar. It's such an iconic thing. What you can do with natural light just by opening up the shades.
Exactly. So the second song, it was almost like in those old Ville situations where they take the long cane and they pull you by the neck, So number one, the first track was I was on top of the world, and the second track I was.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I'm out. See ya. And then they took over, but it was a great experience. This part that is going into now is the after party segment. So
because we're doing party and after party.
Party and after party. So you can see actually through the glass, the X is highlighted by the center section. And objective of it is that, you got glimpses of where the sweet spot was, but now you're led directly to it with visual, So before it was all auditory, it was all, you're hearing it, and you're looking for it. But now it actually says, this is where you're supposed to be. And then now that I got you where you're supposed to be, now you're gonna hear my real experience, the after party, which is I've been banging the party, and then I go back to the hotel, gotta wait for a flight. I'm not going to a typical, what people think is an after party, like, okay, we're gonna go to, a bar, or we're gonna go to somebody's house and we're gonna play music and all that. No, my after party is sitting in the hotel room, my ears ringing from the buzz of the party and the loud sound system and everything. And, I'm trying to figure it out. Now this is great, and I like this. And at Dia, it was the same way. There was a train that went by. And it almost fits with the timing of the train when it comes by, but it gets off. So you'll get the impact of these outside noises that
in real life, like in any club,
that are in real life, And I like how it plays with my piece, because during the party, if the beat and everything in the low end is happening, then you probably won't hear it. But when it gets quiet, or, at this point where I consider this angst, because I'm sitting in a hotel, I've been in European cities where there's nothing on TV in English except for CNN, and you're just watching CNN and they're repeating the same thing every 30 minutes, and it's just like, goddamn, you try to sleep, and then, you got to catch a flight, and you're not sure if you're going to be able to hear the next day, and how long will this last? I got another party to do. It's going to compound it, because sometimes I was doing 4 gigs in a weekend, in 4 different countries. Some days I do 2 gigs in 2 different countries on one day,
I ask conductors and classical musicians, because they travel just as much, pretty much. They have an effect on the sound, like let's say the strings in the violin. How does the traveling affect your sound? Does it affect your sound?
The difference between what happens with classical musicians or conductors and DJs is that, a conductor is going to know where he's going to be 2 years in advance. DJs don't know where they're going to be next month, because we're picking up gigs and stuff. There's always this kind of stuff. So when I work with like Francesco Tristano, the virtuoso pianist, he knows on the classical side he's going to be in Luxembourg, for a week here. He's going to be in Barcelona for a week there. He's going to be in Berlin for a week there. So he knows in his setup and he knows exactly what's happening. And I might know where I'm going to be this summer, but there's always another gig that comes up. And there's always another one. So there are things that are being fit in. And I would think that a conductor has a limited experience in comparison to what DJs have, we're like pilots, I guess, musical pilots.
Where live on a plane,
just to go, then we hop on another plane and we go on and do it. And this part is really my favorite part.
Yeah, that's the moment when I mentioned beginning. I was standing on the left corner.
Okay.
That was the angst. I guess I connected with the angst moment.
Right. Good.
Yeah.
And this part, the
angst,
low end sounds every time, every cycle they change. So I have something that's called the Mentasm part, because it uses a sound that sounds like it's from Mentasm, Joy Belcher Mentasm. And so instead of it being wow, wow, it's like wow, wow, and every time it changes. So I have maybe 5 or 6 versions of that. I have these whispers that come from various speakers that move around. It could come from the top, it could come from the actual speakers themselves. And those whispers are tweets that I had tweeted years ago, because I used to really go hard on tweeting and stuff. And so I took tweets and put it in a piece.
Oh wow, interesting. I don't know if you saw it on Saturday when the people first walked into the space and that was the moment with the cross, how they all gathered around in a circle and started dancing. I mean, taking pictures as well, but they were like trying to do their own performance. Within this, it's amazing how just the spotlight on the cross created that experience.
But that wasn't the intent.
No, I felt that. I was like, I'm sure this is not what it is. But I mean, it was also an event and people had intoxicated.
But that wasn't the intent, but that's what it became. I didn't realize that until after the piece debuted. When I did all the trials and everything, getting the piece together, it never crossed my mind that people would stand there and take one for the gram, until I started seeing people posting it on Instagram. And you got people doing interpretive dance, and you have people just standing there, and I realized what organically happened with the piece was it gave people the chance to feel like they're a star, that they're in the spotlight, because usually the performer, the DJ is in the spotlight. The dancers usually aren't in the spotlight, they're part of the lights. But that gave them the opportunity to actually be in the spotlight. It became their stage. So I'm with it. Same way the fire trucks go past, I mean, I'm with it. I'm totally with it.
I know it's very difficult, but who is Carl Craig in 3 tracks?
Oh my gosh. In 3 tracks, wow. Zap, More Bounce to the Ounce. More bounce.
Why?
I mean, that track is the epitome of synthesized funk, where the drums are a loop, the bass is just low-end Moogish sound. I'm a guitar player, so there's some guitar in there, and then vocoder, and that's it. The simplicity of the funk is that. So more bounce to the ounce. And also the fact that has been the template for so much modern music. I mean, rap just used it so much. But when I met Tina and Chris from Tom Tom Club, they said that Genius of Love was them trying to make more bounce to the ounce.
Oh, wow.
And that blew my mind. So Kraftwerk has been a huge influence on me over the span of 40 years. It's More Fun to Compute is another track that I would say is me. More Fun to Compute are numbers, but that Computer World album. After Tina had said that to me about Genius Love, then the next time I heard It's More Fun to Compute, I thought, like, hold on. This is kind of like more bounce to the ounce. It's like, okay, this is, yeah, I wonder. So I kind of did a little digging just to put the timelines together, and it's possible because what a lot of A&R did, and they were on Warner in the U.S. That album was on Warner in the U.S. and More Bounce was on Warner in the U.S. So it's very possible that they got a copy of that, and they were like, "Holy shit! Let's make a track that sounds like." It's possible. I don't know. And I only met Ralph for the first time last year, so I didn't ask him. Like, maybe when I go to Dusseldorf, we'll eat some Turkish food or something, and I'll be like, "Hey, Ralph, more bounce to the ounce, and it's more fun to compute." You guys.
It's more fun to compute. It's more fun to compute.
What was he like?
Right.
Dying to have him on the show, so I'm intrigued.
He's quite German. And, so like with Mark and Moritz from Bass Channel, those guys can be very straight. And Moritz, is very open, but very, very straight in a German way in his way, but very warm person. And I didn't feel that Ralph is cold, but he just, first time meeting, and he's there, and he surprised me because he says, "Hey, you do symphonic stuff, right?"
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah. Okay, somebody's been giving you some good news, or you've been listening, one of the two.
Yeah.
But he was cool. It was cool. So a dream for all of us of always to go to Kling Klang and see, what Kling Klang is. Well, most of us want to see what Kling Klang was for Computer World, because that was the Hood record. That was the record that we all.
Good record, I like that.
Yeah, that was the Hood record. The third track, that would say, that would be the epitome of Carl Craig.
Could be also one of your tracks.
Yeah, but I go by
Yes.
So you know what? It would have to be, because I got to put Rick in there. I got to put Rick James in there. So
I love Rick James.
Standing on the Top, that one, it always gets me, or Dance With Me, that fast funk that he did. I think that funk was probably around 125 or something. It was kind of fast for funk and R&B. Of course, I love George Clinton and all that. So, One Nation Under Groove.
So I can't get around it. So low, you can't get under it. So high, you can't get over it. So high, can't get over it. This is a chance to dance your way out of your constrictions. Shook 'em. Here's a chance to dance our way out of our constriction. Gonna be freaking up and down the hang-up alleyway. With a groove I only got, we shall all be moved. Ready or not, here we come.
And then on the softer side, of course, with E2E4 from Mamwagachi, that's been kind of a template for me musically, because there's some things about the chords that I always go back to. What's also great about Beacon is that when you go to Beacon, there's nowhere else to go. So you're
there.
Gonna be in Beacon, yeah. So with this, because this is the only piece, hopefully if you don't stay a cycle, then you'll come back and then you'll stay a cycle, or you stay 3 cycles. I want people, like I said, I want people to take lunch breaks, come, experience, and go back to work,
With a bounce in the step.
With the bounce, with the bounce, yeah, more bounce to the ounce. That's right.
You've got style. There's something about Detroit artists that have so much style. What is it? Why is it? And what are your design references? And I'm not just speaking sonically. I mean,
yeah, we're kind of fashion whores, a lot of us. I watched this thing about when Muddy Waters first came to the UK. Muddy Waters made Manish Boy, he made all these rootsy blues records, and Mick Jagger and Charlie Watts and the guys from Pink Floyd and all those guys, they were really into this Muddy Waters music, and their imagination's going wild. You know, Muddy Waters is, you know, on the farm, and he's got all mud on him, and, you know, he's got a little piece of hay that he's got in his teeth, and
They only had a record as a reference.
and they only had the record as a reference. And when he came to London to play, he came in a tuxedo with an ascot, playing a Telecaster instead of playing an acoustic guitar, and started doing, you know, he was doing this electric blues. And they hated it because they thought Muddy Waters was supposed to be this poor black man, not this, you know, locked in fashion cat that's pushing the boundaries and stuff. They hated him. And, you know, of course he listened, and then he came back the next time dressed in closer to the way that they thought that he was supposed to be dressed. He came in, you know, like coveralls and boots and stuff like that.
So he took that as a...
Took it, and then he came back that way. And then when he came back, they had all started following the electric Muddy Waters. So it got flipped on him. So then he could come as himself, you know, later on and stuff. But that's what started the whole electric blues thing that happened in the UK, was when Muddy Waters came that first time when they hated him. With techno, and with hip hop, with styles like that, there's always this idea that, you know, what's hip hop and what's not hip hop, or techno was supposed to be underground resistance. You know, if you're from Detroit, you should wear a mask, and you should be, you know, a hoodie, black hoodie, and, you know, you should look like you're a musical terrorist. And this is what spawned a lot of what you see in Germany with their movement and Trezor and all that, was that underground resistance came, you know, and that became like the techno look. And then when Mark and Moritz kind of flipped it to the Berlin techno look on their side, it was when they came to the US and got Timberlands and Carhartt, tan Carhartt clothes, and, you know, that became another segment. That was the hard wax Berlin, you know, techno look. So, but in the same way that hip hop started out with Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5 wearing leather jackets with tassels on them and cowboy boots, and, you know, they were making character, that is not what people would think is hip hop. You know, they think hip hop is, you're supposed to be a b-boy, and you gotta wear Timberlands, and, you know, you gotta look like the next level from Run DMC, you know, and then it goes down. So I've always been into clothing. My brother is 9 years older than me, and he used to wear, like, that was at the time where they made, you know, those two-tone shirts that look like motorcycle jackets, and then you open it up and it's, you know, like Prince. Michael Jackson was wearing it on the cover of Thriller. There's been a whole hoopla of whether Michael Jackson's wearing a hoodie, but he's not. He's wearing an asymmetrical biker jacket shirt, you know, with a zipper on it. This is the part where the ceiling comes open.
Could take a quick peek. You want to go?
Should close now. Yeah. And now as the ceiling closes, then it's just the lights. Yeah. Yeah.
I love the way we're weaving in and out, you know?
Yeah. We have an opportunity to have more of a conversation.
Yes.
You know. But with clothing, so when I was 10 years old, 11 years old, I used to run up to the corner store in the hood and buy a GQ magazine, you know?
Right.
And GQ, they'd only have 2 copies. And I had to get one. And you're 10, 11, 12 years old, you don't have a lot of money, and it might have been $5 or something. My allowance might have been $5, who knows at that time. So I went up and got the GQ, and I just keep looking through GQ, and I was always attracted to fashion in that way, especially fashion at that time. I loved it a lot more than I do how it has become. But I have a great friend of mine, Daniel Lee from Burberry. He's at Burberry now. I love his stuff, That's what I was wearing at the gala, was his work that just came off the runway like a month ago. So thanks to Daniel and team for doing.
Shout out to Burberry, also friends of ours at the show.
Good. Yeah. And Daniel made some great stuff when he was with Bottega, and some excellent stuff with Bottega. Every year that we did the DMF, when I was involved in it, I had to wear something that was just gonna be a step above, So one year I had just the YSL stuff from Tom Ford. So Tom Ford did Gucci, and at that time it was all this flowery stuff that was not my thing, with big legs and stuff. And then he had the YSL stuff it felt more like it was based off of Japanese design, and that was my shit. So I had, every day I had on a different signature YSL piece during the festival. So speaking of Germany, like with Sven, Sven was kind of seen as in the forefront of fashion as well as in music from Cologne. And people, if he wore rave clothes and he had his Buffalo platform sneakers on or whatever, it was signs of the times, but as time went on, he kept his fashion game happening, So
it's funny because he also headed towards like the Japanese design, and I think that kind of correlates with also the sound, Japanese design in general.
Sure.
So also that you had influenced by it, I think.
Yeah, and Ali Dubfire, he's always, got his look, So it's never been in me to just wear techno clothes, because of Muddy Waters.
Favorite Muddy Waters track? Which track should we play?
Manish Boy, definitely.
Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man, way past 21. I want you to believe me, baby. I have lots of fun. I'm a man. I spell him H-I.
I'm heading to Detroit tomorrow to interview Omar S., a friend of yours. Yeah. Top 3 places, your favorite spots that I need to check out and our listeners should check out. Record stores, cafes, restaurants, stores, whatever.
Interesting. Well, Motor City Wine is one. We do a wine every year with Motor City Wine called Detroit Love that is usually during the time of the Movement Festival. So Motor City Wine is great to go to. I love Lebanese food, so anywhere that there's good Lebanese food. And in my experience, it tastes almost exactly the same as it does in Beirut. A friend of mine who's Lebanese, he had said how you can tell us about a tabbouleh. If tabbouleh's not done correctly, then it's not going to be good. But if tabbouleh's done right, then you're straight. Yeah, it's the real deal. I mean, I like just driving around Detroit at nighttime, So going to see the desolation, finding things I hadn't looked at before, like on the way to see Omar S. last time, where I met him at I had to drive past a city airport, which I never drive past because I don't go in that direction. So it's great to see what that is. And then a friend of mine, Ralph Gilles, he's the cat from SRT. They have an SRT museum that's right near City Airport, where they have all of the like concepts and limited editions and never before seen and all that stuff. So that was really great. We went, me and Kenny Dixon and Haji was there and Tracy was there. So we had a great time with Ralph there. So I think they're planning on actually opening that to the public at some point. Yeah, so it's really quite incredible.
To go slightly more intimate, what's your go-to falling in love or heartbreak song?
I mean, E2E4 is a great song to fuck with. You know, it's 60 minutes long, and it takes you on a voyage. It's great. And if you got the stamina to fuck for 60 minutes, it's a great song to fuck with. Anything that goes through patterns, you know, something like Steve Reich, music for 18 musicians, you know, that's long and it just goes through these, it takes love on another level. It's not somebody that's crooning to you and you're supposed to fall in love with the saxophone and, you know, like Smooth Operator or something. It's not that. It's like, it's really, you know, you find the wave and then you follow it and then you go with where it changes, and it could be quirky and it could not be quirky, but you can just enjoy the movement, and that's how I feel about life and love and all that. But if we want to go to the sax,
What is the sexiest song?
the saxiest would be
Saxiest.
saxiest.
Saxiest, not sexiest.
You know, Underground Resistance, Nation to Nation. They had Earth to Earth and Nation to Nation, and I think they had a Soul to Soul. Those are great, you know, jazz records that are great for the dance floor, but great for, you know, like romancing your somebody else's skin.
Keep it sexy, guys. Keep it sexy.
Keep it sexy.
Well, to wrap up our little chat, if your life would be a movie, and I heard you're having a little documentary coming up, what song would play in the end credits? Or what song will play in the end credits? To maybe make it easier for you, what's like one of your go-to closing tracks?
That can change. I don't really have a go-to closing track. I have just whatever the vibe is at the time. So now, you know, something that's kind of quirky. Was it Sound Without Sound from White Noise? You know, 1969, the year I was born. You know, that would be a good end of my life track. You know, the sound is done.
On that note, thank you very much for being on air with us tonight.
Pleasure. All right.
Beyond the outside world swung left to right.
Thank you for tuning in this week. If you want to listen to the full playlist, visit areonair.com or our Spotify channel. You can also find us on Instagram and on YouTube at areonair. And
And a big thank you to my wonderful team at Studio Neu. I'm Armand Lafay, and I'll speak to you soon.